As we're getting going, more and more of this thing will be backed up in multiple places for faults in terms of technology, but also political faults. I mean, the Library of Alexandria was burned.
Yeah.
So we need to be able to preserve our digital history in multiple places under different regimes. So basically, since these things require attending, every 10 years you've got to move it forward to the next generation of technology, or it dies. So you need an organization to keep it going, and I will endow the organization with enough money to keep the bits alive forever. So any bits that are donated to the Internet Archive, I will make sure has the money for every 10 years, will keep it alive. But right now there are no institutions that are doing large-scale digital collections. And so we're, I think, the first that is starting to build the core collection that can become a digital library.
Could we make it so that all the published works of humankind could be available to anybody wanting to have access? That was the opportunity of the internet and our digital revolution from my perspective, and what I signed on to go and help build. We started with the most fragile media, the World Wide Web, then went on to television in the year 2000, books in about 2000, 2001. Then there's user contributions from all over the place. We've done microfilm and LPs and CDs and 78s. The idea is to make it so that all the riches of the published works of humankind, from Sumerian tablets to the newest Instagram whatever, would be available to anybody that wanted to have access. That's the dream. That's what our mission has been for 25 years, every day of that 25 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, the dream lives on. Welcome to the 25th anniversary of the Internet Archive. Good evening to everyone here in San Francisco and to everyone watching abroad online. I'm Tracy Jakewith, going to be your MC and host for the evening, and I'm the founding coder of the Internet Archive. You know that video from 1996? I was in those same rooms behind the camera there. But tonight I want to tell you a little engineering secret, and it's about this sculpture right here. When Brewster Kahle founded the Internet Archive 25 years ago, every single page of the World Wide Web fit into this sculpture and artwork by Alan Rath. Every single page. It only took 2 terabytes to store it all, and the entire 1996 was in this box. Pretty amazing, right? I mention that because tonight, we want to kick off this celebration by first going way back to the original vision of the internet, when Brewster Kahle was still a young MIT student and wee lad, dreaming of creating a library of everything for everyone. Here to tell us what happened next is the founder of the Internet Archive, my boss, my friend, Brewster Kahle. All right. All right. I can say it in 5 words. Universal access to all knowledge. And by doing this whole 25th anniversary thing, I've realized I've been saying the same thing for 25 years. And it doesn't get old, right? And it doesn't get quite done. But it's been the dream for millennia, right? The whole Library of Alexandria on forward, right? The idea that if you wanted to have access, you could have access. That was the promise of
even like the printing press, right, of going and democratizing access to knowledge. I'd say it was also more directly the promise of Andrew Carnegie's public libraries. And it really helped fuel a lot of democratization, citizenship inside the United States. The internet, though, was really the opportunity to make that dream come true. And we have the opportunity that maybe comes in once a millennium of a medium change, a change that allows us to redo things. When we change how people have stored and communicated their knowledge. There was the oral to manuscript transition, which was a revolution and caused all sorts of troubles. And there was the manuscript to printing, which also caused its own troubles. And we're now seeing going from print to digital. And it's causing its own troubles. But we have this opportunity. And in 1980, I was fortunate enough to be there to go and say, wow, what a great opportunity to try to influence this change from going from print to digital. Of course, we were building on the lots of works of others. And in 1980, there were some of these ideas were in the air from like Vannevar Bush's 1945 paper, As We May Think. A completely great paper, actually. It holds up today as a charting of where we're going to go, even into the sort of telepathy things that we're starting to see now. Then there was Ted Nelson's Xanadu, The World of Hypertext. There was, so that was in mind. Doug Engelbart's way of annotating and building on the works of others was also in mind. But it turned out that it wasn't the computers that made the big difference. It was the network. It was how do you communicate with each other? Yeah, anybody could go and write a word processing document, right? That was good. But could you make everyone a publisher? Could you go and make it so everybody could find their voice and then go and find their community no matter where they were in the world? That was an opportunity. And that was the opportunity that we saw and we could go and build. And by 1996, we had built that world. It was the World Wide Web. So with a global publishing network, the web, we could finally build the library. It was time to build the library. And in 1996, we said, sure, maybe we'd have to go off and digitize a full library. That couldn't be that hard, right? So a group of us, Tracy among them, said, yeah, let's go do this. Let's go and build this thing. And we started by archiving the most transient of media, the World Wide Web's pages. And we did that for 5 full years before we even launched the Wayback Machine. The idea was to record what people had been publishing, be able to go out and gather these materials, but then be able to use them in new and different ways. Could we build a library to preserve all the materials, but then add computers into the mix? And then something new and magic could happen. Could we connect people, connect ideas, build on each other's concepts with these computers, throw in some of the AI things that we knew were coming? Ultimately, could we make the world smarter? That was really the goal. Could we make people smarter by making them connected? Not just because they could read what each other had written, but because machines could help filter information, scan vast amounts of knowledge, emphasize what's important, and provide context for the deluge. Well, in many ways, we've done that, right? It's kind of magic, but in many ways, it hasn't actually gone completely right? It's not complete enough. We're now having people writing and sharing, but it's also mixed with misinformation, purposefully false information. We're up to our necks in spam of information. So we have part of the dreams of the access, but we lack the tools and the responsible organizations to help us make good use of the flood. This may not be surprising, given that the digital transition is so new, but it is urgent that we go and find solutions to this. We need to fight misinformation. We need to build data mining tools to leverage all of this information to help people make better decisions and be smarter. This, I would say, is our collective challenge for the next 25 years. When I started the Internet Archive in 1996, I felt that this project needed to be done in the open and as a nonprofit. We needed not to just have one or two search engines. We need to have lots and lots of organizations building new ideas on top of the whole collection, the whole knowledge base of humanity. We could help by building a library for this digital world. The libraries that I grew up with, the physical libraries, were vast and they were free. And they came with librarians who helped me understand what I needed to know. But in this new digital world, that future that I got to benefit from growing up is not guaranteed. It may be that most people will just feed on information that they get for free, placed there because it was promoted by somebody. If we don't solve this, getting quality published materials to the internet population, we're going to bring up a generation educated on whatever dreck they can find. So we need to build not only universal access to a lot of web pages, we need to have access to the best information out there. We need universal access to all knowledge. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to require existing business models to change. It's going to require adjustments by long-standing institutions. But what we need is an internet with many winners. If we have an internet with just a few winners, a few big corporations, large governments that are controlling too much of what's online, then we'll all lose. A library alone cannot solve all of these issues, but I'd submit it's a necessary component, needed infrastructure in a digital world. 25 years ago, I thought building this new library would largely be a technological process, right? I'm a geek, right? How hard could it be? Just write the programs, get it going, it'll work. But I was wrong. It turns out to be mostly a people process. Crucially, the Internet Archive has been supported by hundreds of organizations. About 800 libraries have helped build the web collections that are the Wayback Machine. About 1,000 libraries, cool, have contributed books to be digitized to make up the book collections in the Internet Archive. And there are about 5 million volumes now strong that are publicly available to all. But beside all these libraries, there's also people with expertise in, say, railway timetables, or old-time radio, or 78 RPM records. They've been donating physical materials, uploading digital files to our servers that you see in this room. Last year, well over 100 million people used the resources of the Internet Archive. Isn't that cool? Over 100,000 people donated financially to the Internet Archive. This has been truly a global project, a people's library. I love the fun and wacky and interesting things on the internet. I go online and see these things and then say, wow, that's remarkable. Okay, so yesterday I was looking through a donation from Kevin Hobler, excuse me. He donated the collection from his father that his father had built over his whole lifetime. His father collected everything from a particular singer named Buddy Clark, everything he'd ever done. He was a 1940s big band singer, and he died when he was 37 years old. So now I could listen to the 78 RPM records, see the sheet music, dive into details. And I love this, going down rabbit holes and learning something deeply. It was a real tribute to Buddy Clark, but it was also a tribute from Kevin to his father, who collected and preserved something that he loved for the future. That we're able to enjoy each other and express our wackiness, that's the win of the World Wide Web, I would say. That's the thing that you wouldn't get if it was all just more channels of television. Yes, the internet and the World Wide Web are a bit of the Wild West. And yes, it gets a little weird and strange on the edges. But would you want it any other way? Isn't that where the fun and interesting things come from? Today, it's still the people's internet. That's the internet that I wanted to support by starting the Internet Archive. The World Wide Web is an experiment in radical sharing, where people feel better off, not worse off, for building on each other's works. I'm hopeful and optimistic that we can build the next 25 years to be as interesting and fun as the last. We can usher in another level of technology, another 25 years of blossoming, interesting ideas. To end this talk, I'm going to end with a personal story. My grandfather was Douglas Lurton. He was a publisher and an author who died before I was born. Last weekend, I searched for his name using full text search in the Internet Archive's 20 million text items that we've got. And his name popped up in a newspaper from West Sacramento. And it was a quotation from him. And it said, "Take the tools in hand and carve your own best life." Douglas Lurton. Right? Go granddad, but it's kind of cool to be able to find this. But I'm going to suggest that we expand that advice just slightly. How about let us take all of our tools in hands and together carve our own best future. Let's keep the trust. Thank you for your belief in us for these last 25 years. Thank you and have a good evening. Tracy.
Let's get to that future, Brewster. It's going to be a wonderful one. You know, not every single library comes with its own symphonic pipe organ, but the archive does, and it's right there, the console. The pipes are behind these decorative grills behind us, and the curtains here. So tonight we're very excited. We have San Francisco Symphony's principal trumpeter, Mark Inoa, who's fantastic, and the organist from St. Luke's Cathedral, Leilani Garbutt, performing two pieces tonight for organ and trumpet.
Happy 25th anniversary, Internet Archive.
Hello, my name is Vinton Cerf. I'm Google's Vice President and Chief Internet Evangelist. But the reason I wanted to talk to you today was to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Internet Archive. And to be quite honest, I was stunned when I was told it's the 25th anniversary. It's so hard to believe that time has gone by so quickly. But the institution has been tremendously helpful to all of us who care about preserving the digital past for our descendants in the future. And that's what the Internet Archive has been all about, preserving the World Wide Web as it has evolved and changed almost on a daily basis. So, of course, all credit goes to Brewster Kahle for actually realizing not only that this was an important thing to do, but finding a way to do it, and to do it over literally 25 years. So congratulations on surviving that long and for leading the way towards the preservation of the World Wide Web and many other things as well, online books, software, and the like. So congratulations and thank you, and keep at it.
Founder of the internet. Ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so occasionally I do really bad tech jokes, so we're going to break the seal. Recursion and understanding recursion is really simple. All you have to do is first understand recursion. Terrible. Okay, one more. I'll tell you a joke about UDP, but you might not get it. I'm the Captain America of bad tech jokes. I can do this all night, so don't get me started. Okay, so the theme of this celebration is From Wayback to Way Forward. So I want you now to close your eyes and imagine you're entering the future. Recently, we created this Way Forward machine to take you to the year 2046, where in order to get information, you have to divulge personal details, where knowledge in certain political blocks is out of reach, where an underground internet archive is leading a resistance to provide universal access to knowledge once more. Of course, the point of this site is to say, if you value access to knowledge, you have to fight for it. Our next speaker embodies that fight. Not only is he a best-selling science fiction writer, but he's also an activist and special advisor to the EFF. Please welcome to the stage a friend of the archive, Cory Doctorow, taking us
Thanks. So I wear a lot of hats. One of them is dystopian science fiction writer, and in my capacity as a dystopian science fiction writer, I want to tell you that the Way Forward vision is officially a dystopian vision. What makes things dystopian is not that things have gone wrong. It's that bad stuff is happening and no one's fixing it. After all, imagining that things might go wrong does not make you an optimist, it makes you an idiot, right? Imagining things might go wrong is mere prudence, right? Like maybe this giant unsinkable Titanic should still have lifeboats does not make you a pessimist. And by the same proposition, this giant Titanic will never sink, so we don't need to bother with the lifeboats, is some genuinely dystopian stuff. So when a lot of stuff goes wrong, that is a dystopian setting, but it's only when stuff goes wrong and no one is trying to put it right again that you have a dystopian story. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about my friend Ada Palmer, who's a science fiction writer and a lyricist and a musician and a librettist, but she's also a tenured professor of Renaissance history at the University of Chicago, where she specializes in forbidden knowledge, witchcraft, heresy, homosexuality, pornography during the Inquisition. She's a lot of fun. And she's infamous on the University of Chicago campus for this thing she does every year. She has her undergraduates undergo a 4-week-long live-action role-playing game in which they reenact the election of the Medici's Pope. And every single one of these students is assigned a real historic personage, a cardinal from a great family in Renaissance Florence. Oh, and I don't have my slides anymore. And a cardinal from a great family in Renaissance Florence. There they are. And for 4 weeks, they form alliances, they break alliances, they stab each other in the back. And at the end of the 4 weeks, they go into this weird pseudo-Gothic hall that they have at the University of Chicago campus. And they dress up. Ada's got a Google alert for theater troops that are selling off their costumes. And so she kits them out like this. And they invest the Pope. And every year, 2 of the final 4 candidates for the Pope are the same 2 historic personages. And every year, the other 2 are never the same people. Because the great forces of history are bearing down on that moment. And it is absolutely the case that 2 of those people are going to get a shot. But it is also absolutely the case that the things that people do, no matter how hard the great forces of history are bearing down on you, affect the outcome. Right? We have agency. We don't run on rails. The future depends not on the great forces of history, but on what we do with them. Most importantly, the future, the world, it doesn't unfold like the plot of a novel. I mean, take it from me. I write the plots of novels and I try to affect the future. It's a lot easier to plot a novel because you can discard all that inconvenient stuff where you try really hard to do something and it doesn't work and you have to try something else, right? When you're writing a novel, you can construct this smooth gradient of rising dramatic tension and stakes until you reach a convenient climax and a denouement where everybody smokes a cigarette and then the end credits roll and you see what everyone did in the future. In actual real life, the terrain not only cannot be mapped, but you shouldn't even bother to try. We can't plot a course from A to Z because the terrain is so unknowably complex that by the time we finish the map, we'd have to start drawing it again. And the terrain isn't just complex, it's adversarial. We want to make a future that other people want to stop. And so while we're sitting there trying to figure out how we're going to get from A to Z like it's a novel, already the people who we are working against have rearrayed the terrain so that we can no longer cross it. So the question is, how do you get across the terrain? You get across the terrain the way computer programmers do. When a computer programmer is confronted with a data set that is so complex that by the time you finished mapping it out, you'd have to start over again, you don't try to find a perfect solution, you try to find a best fit solution, a heuristic. You try to find an optimization. You do things like hill climbing. And in hill climbing, you analogize yourself to an ant. An ant has forward-facing eyes. It doesn't know which way it should go to get to high ground. But an ant has lots of legs. And when an ant is sitting there not knowing which step it should take next, it can pull its legs and say which of its legs is on highest ground. And it can take a step in that direction. And it attains a new vantage point. And it can say again which leg is on highest ground. And it takes a step in that direction. One step at a time, it can ascend to the highest peak that it is adjacent to. So that's how we have to proceed at every step. Rather than knowing the way that we get to the end point, we just have to ask ourselves, which direction should we go in to get to the place that is closest to where, that gets us closest to the place we want to be in. And so which directions do we have available to us at each of these junctures? Well, we have, thankfully, a great theorist of this stuff who helped us understand it. Larry Lessig, take a drink. Larry, 1999, about the time this place was getting off the ground, Larry wrote this book, Code and Other Laws of Cyberspace, and he said we have 4 directions we can go in. We have 4 things we can do at each juncture. We can write code, we can change markets, we can change norms, or we can change laws. Code, law, norms, and markets, the 4 forces that bear down on us at every moment that affect the future that we're going to have. And here's how that works, right? Say you've been writing free and libre and open source software all your life, and you're depressed because none of your friends are willing to work at it. Well, you've been hacking away at that code for a long time. So maybe it's time to try something else. Like you could volunteer at your local library to teach FLOSS technology and FLOSS literacy. That's a normative intervention. Or you could go to work for a refurbisher to install Ubuntu or another free operating system on the laptops they're distributing. That's a market intervention. Or you could go talk to your school board or your local government about how crazy it is that they're buying computers that have proprietary operating systems on them or buying software that's proprietary. That's a legal intervention. Are your comrades laboring under usury from payday lenders? Well, you can form a mutual aid society. That's a normative intervention. And if you do that, that might free up space to fight payday lenders. That's a market intervention. And then that fight might need you to write some code to allow you to coordinate it. That's a technological intervention, and code needs testers. So even if you're not a coder, if you're just someone who's in the movement, you can be that person who sits down and does the thoughtful work of figuring out why you're confused and helping the people who make those tools make them less confusing so people situated similar to you will find it easier to use them. You can march against the climate emergency norms to get regulation, laws, which changes what products and services are socially acceptable, and then that changes, which is a normative intervention, and that changes what's profitable, which is a market intervention. Or you can go in another order, right? If there's better tech for power generation or weatherizing your homes, which is a code intervention, then it's easier to ban polluting alternatives, which is a legal intervention, which changes what people think of as an acceptable way to live, which is a normative intervention, which makes it easier to invest in the markets to produce sustainable technology, which is a market intervention. Now, if you've been around and trying to figure out how to do code for good for a long time, you might have been called a solutionist at some time. You know what solutionism actually is? It's just using code without thinking about those other 3 interventions. In the same way that consumerism is just using markets without thinking about those other interventions. And proceduralism is just using a law without thinking about those other interventions. And social justice is just using norms without thinking about those other interventions, code and markets and law. Every tactic can only get you so far. It's a tool. It's like a hammer. And when you got a nail, you need a hammer, and that's fine. What's not fine is to insist that when you've got a screw that you should still use the hammer to drive it in. So what is the nature of our situation, and what tools do we have at our hands? Well, to there we can turn to another one of our great friends of our movement, Jamie Boyle, who's not here tonight, and who is another great hero of our movement. Thank you. Jamie talks about the day that the word ecology was coined and the profound effect it had on our world. Because before the term ecology came into wide usage, there were people who cared about owls and there were people who cared about the ozone layer, but it wasn't immediately apparent that because I cared about the destiny of charismatic nocturnal avians, that I had something in common with you who cared about the gaseous composition of the upper atmosphere. And the term ecology took 1,000 issues and made it one movement with 1,000 ways to get involved. So what do we need? We need to figure out how to weld together a movement of a whole bunch of people who have the same cause, even though they don't know it. We need solidarity. And for solidarity, we need to identify a common adversary, a common thread that runs through the circumstance that we all find ourselves in. And that common thread is monopoly. We live in a world in which our destiny has been confiscated from us by a few firms who have taken to heart this idea that if you can't own everything, it's not worth playing the game. They're the same people who turn the web into 5 giant websites filled with screenshots of text from the other 4, but they're also the same people who reduced the hundreds of publishers we once had to 4 giant publishers, several of which are suing the Internet Archive at the moment. They're also the same people who created big tech, and they're also the same people who created big music, 3 record labels, and the same people who created big movies, 4 studios. And the people who labor in those different silos, the people who provide services to them, we deserve better than choosing a giant and hoping that if that giant defeats the other giants, that it might drop more crumbs for us in exchange for our support as it fought in this battle of the titans. So let me be clear here. I'm not advocating for this because it's efficient or because competition makes companies better. I'm arguing about this because we deserve the dignity of self-determination, the right to decide how we live our lives. We have to stop getting mired down and asking questions solely about what technology does. We have to do the thing that science fiction writers do and ask who it does it for and who it does it to. We need to seize the means of computation. We need to seize all the levers of power. We need to pluralize them so that we all get a say in how our lives are lived. The future is an unequivocally dystopian setting. The climate emergency is on its way. Inequality and rising authoritarianism are with us and doing their damage. And even though it's a dystopian setting, it doesn't have to be a dystopian story. It can be a story of pluralism. It can be a story of self-determination. It can be a story of action and solidarity. Now, we are living in a moment of looming disaster, to be sure. But I beg your pardon, I made some notes before I did this talk and I completely changed the ending, so I just have to decipher them because I learned to type when I was 6 years old and no one, including me, can read my handwriting. Dystopia is not a world in crisis. Dystopia is a world in crisis paralyzed by inaction. And that's not our world and that's not us. We may be scared. We may be sad. We may even be demoralized, but we are not paralyzed. We, my friends, we are in action, we are in motion, and we're going places. Thank you.
My name's Wendy Hanamura. I work for the Internet Archive. This is my mother. Her name is Mary Tuchia Hanamura. And 70 years ago, she was just a teenager when she and her entire family were taken from their homes in Alameda, California, and shipped to this desolate place, this desolate camp called Topaz on the dry lake beds of Utah. When my mom arrived, she was only 15 years old, and she started to volunteer as a nurse's aide in the makeshift camp hospital because her brother, Arn, who was about 21 years old, he was in that ward dying of tuberculosis. You know, today my mom is 93, and it's hard to believe, but she is one of the last people alive who can tell the story of what really happened. And I don't know what will happen when everyone who experienced the incarceration of Japanese Americans, the mass stripping of their civil liberties, when everyone is gone. A few years ago, I started to work with a Japanese American historical organization called Densho, and we decided to pull together the very best books about the Japanese American incarceration and to digitize them. And anyone can go to the Internet Archive and they can check out that book or flip through the pages if it's a way of bringing this story into the future. And this year, the Internet Archive turns 25. And if I have a hope, it's this, that way into the future, 25 years from now, 100 years from now, these stories, the stories like my mother's, will be preserved and archived, and that people will learn the lessons, that governments make mistakes all the time, And we can't let governments make this mistake again.
Governments do make mistakes all the time, but every once in a while, they get it exactly right. And that's what happened on October 8th, when in the House of Representatives, the Honorable Anneteke Adoga of California wrote this into the congressional record. She wrote, "Madam Speaker, I rise to honor the Internet Archive on the 25th anniversary of its founding in 1996. The organization has developed an extraordinary and highly accessible digital library and has become an indispensable asset to society. While physical records of books, newspapers, videos, and audio have long been conserved by libraries and archives, no such record-keeping existed for the Internet in its infancy. Aware of the importance of saving digital documents, the Internet Archive was founded with a mission to conserve digital cultural artifacts for the public and for generations to come. That mission is vital in an age where the Internet plays such a central role in all of our lives. To date, the archive has stored an astonishing 588 billion web pages, 28 million digitized books and texts, 14 million audio recordings, 6 million videos, 3.5 million images, and 580,000 software programs. Millions of people around the world contribute to the archive, and countless more benefit from having access to it. The world-class team of employees and volunteers that administer the Internet Archive are a major reason why the project has been such a success, and I'm proud that many of my constituents contribute to the archive. Anna Eshu wrote, "The Internet Archive's success is also due to the fact that it is managed as a values-driven nonprofit organization. The archive is a large part of how we are going to tell the story of our time, and it's a privilege to congratulate the Internet Archive on celebrating 25 years of cataloging the world. Madam Speaker, I ask the entire House of Representatives to join me in congratulating all of the employees, the volunteers, and the users of the Internet Archive for celebrating its 25th anniversary."
Yes, sometimes our Congress is a little too little, and sometimes it's a lot. But like the Goldilocks story, that was just right. So thank you, Congress. So over the last 25 years, we have seen the Internet morph and change in good ways and bad ways. But here's the good news. It's still 2021. Access to knowledge is still happening right now. And the future is in our hands. Actually, it's in the hands of the next generation. So, what does Generation Z want? Please welcome all the way from Woodbury, Minnesota, the nation's youngest ever national speech champion, she's amazing, Anneteke Adoga, with her message, "From the TikTok generation, your attention please."
Thank you for the introduction, Tracy. There is a strange thing that people older than me do. On the one hand, they think of my generation as the TikTok generation. But then, on the other hand, we'll be having a conversation and then suddenly, boom, they'll say, "Your generation is going to change the world." Well, which is it? Actually, both can be true. As a member of Gen Z, people always assume that I'm obsessed with TikTok, which I guess it's kind of true considering that every other day I have a new TikTok song or dance stuck in my head. Deemed the social media app of my generation, it's everywhere. Just got into college? Make a TikTok about it. Sad because your boyfriend broke up with you? Make a TikTok about it. Bored and have nothing else to do? You get the idea. But TikTok culture isn't only a means for procrastination. It's also a vibrant and rapidly expanding platform to share messages that are important to you. Yes, there are dances, cat videos, cooking hacks, and fashion blogs, but in the midst of a pandemic, I discovered that the app is also home to support groups, educational resources, and political protests. I watched as the internet helped mobilize whole movements and became more than just a place for information, but a home. During the height of the George Floyd protests in Minneapolis, I had the privilege of witnessing firsthand the power and impact that the internet has on people my age. In the midst of a pandemic, I watched as the internet brought people from all different cities, races, and genders together for a single cause. I saw people of all ages lead protests, fundraisers, and open mics in support of marginalized groups. I saw political campaigns being influenced by social media apps. I saw lawmakers taking constructive criticism from people half their age. And it's all because of a vision that a group of people had 25 years ago. We have heard tonight about what the founders of the Internet Archive wanted for the internet. But this is what my generation wants, what my generation deserves. Growing up in suburban Minnesota, I know how valuable open information is. It's the difference from solidarity being a click away versus a paywall away. I'm only 17, but I've seen the internet change a lot since I was younger, and the direction we're heading in concerns me. This past year, I've had a kind of complicated relationship with the internet. On the one hand, it was a place of refuge and escape. But then, on the other hand, it was also kind of a burden. This past May, I won my first ever national speech tournament. I was so excited, not just because of the fact that I won, but also because I won with a message I was really proud of: the overuse of Black trauma in media. Shortly after, an article was published about my accomplishment. However, rather than finding empowering messages about a topic that was really difficult for me to share, I was met with hate, not just about my piece, but also about how I look and where I live. What hurt and surprised me the most is that these messages weren't just coming from people in my generation, but also from adults twice my age. They were taking time out of their day to tear me down as a person. Now, thankfully, I had a really good support system that helped me distance myself from the hate. But this experience got me really thinking about what the internet means to me and how I want others online to feel when exploring the web. This is not the internet that I know and love. And I know that as a society, we can move towards a future that's better than this. My hope for the future is a future where corporations respect the privacy of individuals as we navigate the web. A world where governments allow their citizens to have access to the information of the entire world, and where people no longer feel the need to tear people down, but instead use this as a tool to lift people up. What I want personally from the internet is something I hold very close to my heart. I want internet and media that doesn't limit me to a single identity. I'm a complex person with dreams, aspirations, thoughts, and ideas. And as a 17-year-old Black girl growing up in the United States, I have seen my fair share of trauma and death of people who look just like me. But it doesn't have to be this way. I can say, after observing my peers this past year, that there are some really positive things that Gen Z is doing to shift the way that we view the internet. This past year, I was a part of a group of high school students who helped organize a statewide high school walkout against police brutality. We used the internet, specifically TikTok, to mobilize each other, share ideas, and fundraise for families impacted by police violence. As a unit, we were able to mobilize over 250 high schools statewide for a common cause. We wouldn't have been able to do that without the ability to connect through technology. And it is witnessing events like this that give me hope for a better future. I still don't understand the obsession with TikTok dances, but I do finally understand the power that the internet holds and the responsibility that each individual person carries. I'm sure you've heard it a million times over the last year, but we are living in unprecedented times. It seems that from politics to pandemics, at every turn, we are witnessing history unfold right in front of our eyes. And never before has the internet played such a pivotal role in education and change. As we leave here tonight, I challenge you to ask yourself, what am I doing to promote open information? Whether that's having discussions with your peers about a free and open internet, or supporting organizations like the Internet Archive. Everything we do plays an important role in moving us towards the future that we all deserve. We all have the tools inside us to build a better future. And I promise, you don't need a TikTok to tell you that.
We have not finished the first complete crawl yet, but it's getting there. We're trying to get everything, including all of the images, everything, so you can recreate the web the way it was at any particular time. So you can dial the Wayback Machine and experience what the web looked like. You'll be able to try to use the web the way it was, or find a copy of record, or what did a particular person say at a particular time, or how can you cite a document if the documents go away every 44 days. And this is all it takes. This is a computer donated by Sun, 20 gigabytes of hard drive space that's used as a cache. So that machine in the other room gathers web pages and puts them in a 100 megabyte chunk, transfers it to this set of disks, and after they've been here for a while, they basically get transferred to tape. And that way we can cost effectively store the whole net, which is estimated between 1 and 10 terabytes.
And growing at what rate?
We don't know. We don't know. There's estimates that it's doubling every 7 months, but frankly, we just don't know.
The Wayback Machine was just a glimmer in our eye in 1996. It didn't come out until 2001. So the idea of making the Wayback Machine a big cooperative effort among all these national libraries, universities, that's been one of the great discoveries or evolutions of the Internet Archive.
If you looked closely in the video there, sorry, this is a little loud, you could see my calendar of my workstation in the background with a calendar of RuPaul and some snowboarders. And I thought, that's on brand, that stood the test of time. Love the talk by Anneteke. I got to use one of my favorite lines in the world recently. Let's put her in charge. So. Okay, one joke for you. When it comes to programming languages, there's a new one called Go, relatively new one called Go, and it's kind of like the TikTok language darling of DevOps. But we don't really use it at the archive too much, and every time you don't use it at the archive, Brewster gives you $200. Can you tell why? Because every time you pass Go, you get $200. Okay, so enough of that. This has been a year of milestones for the Internet Archive. Not only is this the 25th anniversary of our founding, but 20 years ago today, almost to this day, in 2001, the Wayback Machine was launched. So here, to put those 20 years into a little perspective, is the director of the Wayback Machine, Mark Graham, and our most recent Wayback Machine intern, USC student, Bridget Bell.
Thank you, Tracy. As our journey from way back to way forward comes to a close, we'd like to reflect on a rather large accomplishment the Internet Archive has reached in these past 25 years. The Wayback Machine officially holds over 600 billion web pages.
Wow. So that's a big number. And, you know, managing the Wayback Machine, we deal with a lot of big numbers. So I'm not going to say that's not a big number. It's massive. But you know what's even bigger? Come on, ask me what's even bigger than that.
All right. I just yearn to know what's larger than 600 billion.
Okay. Larger than 600 billion pages is more than 1 trillion web captures.
Wait.
Yeah.
But we just announced that the Wayback Machine has 600 billion web pages, but now you're saying 1 trillion web captures?
Okay, let me break it down for you. So, like, a web page is made up of lots of individual elements, HTML files, JavaScript, CSS, images, all the rest of that, right? And we archive all of them. So all of those are called web captures, and we've added more than 1 trillion of them. Yep.
To put these 1 trillion web captures into perspective, let's think about it in terms of time. If we were to display a single web capture up on screen every single second, it would take us a little over 31,709 years to see them all.
That's a long time. So how about a physical comparison, right? So let's say each of those captures was a sheet of paper. If you put them in a stack, right, you stack them all up, it'd be enough to circle the moon more than 9 times.
That's massive. But guys, if you're still struggling internalizing this number, then all you really have to know is that 1 trillion is larger than the United States' military budget. When a number surpasses that, then you know it's exorbitantly large.
And that's kind of scary. But you know, in '96, our visionary founder, Brewster Kahle, he was asked, right, we saw the video there, how big he thought the World Wide Web was. It's like between like 1 and 10 terabytes, right?
Yeah. Today, we archive between 3 and 4 terabytes of the web before lunch. In fact, in a single day, we roughly archive the same number of pages that we did in the entirety of the year 1997.
So, you know, dealing with the Wayback Machine, it's always like big numbers, like 20,000 writes a second, 5,000 reads a second, right? So why do you think this milestone is so significant?
You're right, Mark. It's not necessarily about the amount we've stored, but really what we've stored and the links that we've fixed.
Yeah, because so many links go bad, right? We've all gotten 404s. So, like, for example, over the last 25 years, there's been about 2 million URLs added to New York Times articles. And a recent study showed that fully a quarter of them no longer accessible on the live web.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot of link rot. And what about Wikipedia, the world's most popular encyclopedia? Well, the Wayback Machine has partnered with Wikipedia to find over 10 million broken links across their web pages and replace them with archive versions from the Wayback Machine.
Woo, yes! And you know, that's super helpful right now in this age of mis and disinformation, right?
Yeah, now more than ever, having a citation that you can actually click to verify a fact, well, That's really important. At the archive, it's not only about maintaining the live web, though, it's also about preserving the history of the web.
Indeed, the history of our times, right? I mean, in the Wayback Machine, we archive the pulse of our entire culture. Breaking news stories, COVID dashboards, academic research papers, all of the rest of that. And there's a few cat videos thrown in as well.
In essence, the things that make up our current lives and what will be our future history. The Wayback Machine holds entire lost worlds of the web.
It does indeed, and a lot of those worlds are gone, right? I mean, who remembers GeoCities, yeah? 2009, gone. Last May, Yahoo Answers, off the net. There's a whole long list of these lost virtual worlds. Let's see, iVillage, no more. Yahoo Groups. Heck, even the thousands of tweets that Donald Trump posted on Twitter. You can't get them there anymore.
That's actually something critical to remember, though. While popular deprecated worlds still have a way to live on without the Wayback Machine, other online worlds don't. The Wayback Machine is really their only hope of surviving on the web.
Yeah, that reminds me of something. So a couple of years ago, someone wrote to us, a man named Peter, and he told us that his daughter had a brain tumor, and he didn't think that she was going to be with us for very much longer. One of the ways he thought that he was going to remember her was through her online blog, Wonder in Alice Land.
Wonder in Alice Land was the place that Alice shared her dreams, her fears, her thoughts. It was Alice's world, but sadly it was also a lost one. One day, Wonder in Alice Land just disappeared from the web.
Well, we had archived it. It turned out, we went and looked 26 times over the course of 9 years.
And that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Because of the Wayback Machine, Peter still has Alice's writings to read and cherish. It is exactly the stories like these that explain the Internet Archive. It explains our motivation for saving as much as we possibly can. It explains why we're celebrating tonight and why we'll wake up tomorrow and ask ourselves, okay, what more can we do next?
Indeed. Ask me one more question, could you, please?
All right. What's larger than 1 trillion?
All right, well, just one idea, right? It's maybe the impact that even one web archive can have on a person, a community, or indeed the entire world.
Happy 20th anniversary, Wayback Machine.
And happy 25th anniversary, Internet Archive, and here's the 25 more to come.
Sweet.
Hi, it's Peter Gabriel in a drizzly and overcast London, but I'm here for a celebration, and it's the celebration of 25 years of the Internet Archive. That's a hell of an achievement. How much data is there in that 25 years that you have now successfully stored? I dread to think. I have to admit that I was slow to understand the significance of Brewster Kahle's original vision. Like many people, once you get used to the internet, you just assume it's there, that you have the access, that it's open at all times and to all people. But the truth is very different. And I know Mark has done a lot of work also in bringing the internet to lots of people around the world. And this dream is so much more important when it was explained to me by Mark Graham that the average website stays up for 30 days. So all this stuff that is the expression of who we are, of our culture, of our times, our dreams and nightmares, is coming and going unless we do something about it. And the lessons we can learn from storing it and from having access are really important and really significant. The idea of universal access to all knowledge is an amazing dream. And the fact that there is now some people who've been crazy enough for 25 years to try and collect it all and put it together in a way that anyone can access freely at any time, but it's not being changed and modified, and this is so powerful and so important, and so many bad things have been allowed to happen in our world because history has been buried, denied, or forgotten. So what you're doing is on the bright side of life, the opportunities and possibilities that it provides young people around the world are extraordinary. And its sort of darker side, how it might actually, knowledge may prevent the trends that we're seeing now in the world, and help to move us towards a wiser, more rational path and less destructive. This is going to be based on knowledge and access to knowledge and science. It's wonderful what you're doing. Please continue, and many, many rounds of applause for everything from me, but from the whole world, because we're all going to take full advantage of what you're doing. Thank you.
Gosh, thank you, Peter Gabriel. It's sort of the, I don't know, warms my heart. And working in a nonprofit, it's that sort of feedback that you get is actually the payday of working in a nonprofit. And so I thought that was just wonderful. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us tonight. And Brewster, there's lots of people joining us virtually from all over the world. And it's because of your generosity that we've been able to accomplish what you all see today. And we're deeply grateful. But we're not done. And we can't do it alone. I'm the Director of Philanthropy here at the Internet Archive. And I'm inviting you, all of you tonight, to continue to support our vision and our mission. And I'm really happy to announce that we have a 2-to-1 match up to $3 million. Woohoo! This generous gift will allow every donation we receive tonight and for the remainder of the year to be matched. You can make your donation online at archive.org/donate. And for those of you watching virtually, there is a link that's been dropped into the social channels that you can click on, fill out, and submit. And if you have a mobile device, we made this really easy. You can donate by texting archive to 44321, and I am donating right now. Archive 44321. Thank you.
That much? So it actually is that easy, and I've even done it. It's kind of actually pretty slick. Please, you can actually even do it, well, now.
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank, up on the screen, we have generous donors that actually made this whole event tonight possible. Thank you so much. So, Brewster, I'm going to leave the last word to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. And thank you all so much for coming tonight. Thank you for coming together over the last 25 years to support the Internet Archive, a new and different kind of library, a library that's built with the participation of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. As we've heard tonight, the Internet has always had stumbles and challenges, but together we've been able to put something together of tremendous value. The Internet Archive's role is to make that value permanent, to make sure that the hard work, the creativity, the fabric of our lives that are woven into this World Wide Web, make sure that it's there, always there, for every generation to come. But looking forward, where does this all go? Well, I kind of think the Internet Archive, the cool thing of the Internet Archive is that it gives a time access to things where we're sort of often locked in the perpetual present. The Internet Archive allows us to look backwards, but tonight we've asked you to look forward. I charge you, as you leave this place, or turn off this video stream, or do whatever else, please think about what you want in 25 years. Just take a little time. What do you want in 25 years? And then try to think of how to pull us in that direction. How do you pull yourself? How do you pull the Internet Archive? How do you pull your communities towards your vision of what 25 years from now can be? How do we go and build that future that you want and you deserve? As for us at the Internet Archive, we'll be there by your side working for you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. From everyone here at the archive, we got you. Brewster, do you have any last words for us?
Let us eat cake.
Yay!
Okay, and do we have cake tonight?
We have cake from the Director of Media and Access and a master baker, Alexis Rossi. This cake is amazing and totally worth 25-year anniversary. Take it away.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, dear archive. Happy birthday to you. This is a cake. And? Yes. Mark, come on.
I'm not going to cut it while it's turning. That's like a good plan.
Cory, come on over this way. I love that there are lights, the little blue lights that are flickering. Do the lights actually mean something? Oh, it's my favorite part of the tour. That the lights on the supercomputer that's blinking away, being the servers of the Internet Archive, actually mean something. That every time a light blinks is somebody uploading or downloading something from the Internet Archive. Those are live servers on the internet. These, not so much, but boy are they. But is it edible?
It is edible, well, not the light. Everything else is.
The cutting of the cake.
Happy birthday, sir.
Oh. Fantastic.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us tonight. We literally couldn't do this without you. The final word tonight, we're going to see some supporters giving us nice videos. Happy 25th, everyone.
I'm so excited about this anniversary.
Happy 25th birthday, Internet Archive.
Happy 25th anniversary.
Happy 25th anniversary. The Internet Archive. What a crazy idea.
But we're trying to get everything, including all of the images, everything, so you can recreate the web the way it was at any particular time.
The past of websites, books, and videos, images, audio, software.
Ever since I was a child, I always loved reading books.
Watching childhood videos,
be my favorite books.
My favorite part of the Internet Archive is I find it to be quite beautiful and fascinating.
Universal access to all knowledge.
Thank you for the incredible work you're doing to ensure preservation and access to knowledge.
Thanks to the work at Internet Archive, I don't have to worry about my favorite books going extinct.
It was the year 2020 when I finally decided to preserve a bunch of Flash games.
And especially with like old games, old pieces of software that got lost.
My life would be kind of boring without the Internet Archive.
I use the Wayback Machine on a daily basis.
So much would have been lost without the Wayback Machine.
It's been such an amazing resource for me and so many other journalists over the years.
I see the Internet Archive as a beacon of hope.
To all of us who care about preserving the digital past for our descendants in the future.
Crucial for the survival of our civilization. That sounds like hyperbole, but I actually believe that to be just literally true. So happy anniversary, Internet Archive. The greatest thing that ever happened to the internet.
So happy birthday, Internet Archive.
And happy anniversary.
Happy birthday, Internet Archive.
Thanks a lot to Internet Archive and the team behind it.
And I wish you the happiest of anniversaries.
Here's to the next 25.
これからもインターネットアーカイブのさらなる発展を願っています。25周年おめでとうございます。
Happy birthday, dear Internet Archive.
Happy 25th anniversary.
Happy birthday to the Internet Archive.
Happy birthday, Internet Archive.
Happy birthday, Internet Archive.
Here's to 2,500 more years. Happy anniversary.